Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A number of brothers in the Muhsineen group asked for me to record something to help them get started in gardening and growing their own vegetables and herbs. As many of you have probably heard up to this point, Alhamdulillah, we have a community garden at Guiding Light Islamic Center, and we have a plot there that any member of the Muhsineen, they are welcome to plant whatever they would like. Obviously, we should keep it organized, but at least those brothers that live close to GLIC have an opportunity to grow herbs and vegetables if they choose. I think personally it is a very good activity to engage in. First and foremost, you are coming close to the creation of Allah. The act of growing one's own food builds appreciation towards Allah and the complexity of the creation and the sustenance. Secondly, in more economical terms, once again, if you grow your own vegetables, your own herbs, you can offset what ends up being a pretty penny that we spend on groceries. So I'm going to talk very practically about what to expect. What I have in the frame of the video right now is a seed starting kit. So oftentimes go to Walmart, Myers, you'll find in the outdoor/gardening section, you'll find these black containers that have these divots that you can fill with soil, or in the case of what I have in the frame, what is called peat, P-E-A-T, pellets. They look like this, dried out, compacted, oftentimes in a wrapping of cornstarch. Peat, P-E-A-T, is a very good material that is nutrient rich, that helps seeds start quickly and in a healthy manner. So typically what you do is, once again, you don't even need, if you want to cut out, hey, I don't want to get these plastic containers, no problem. You can get a ceramic pot. You can do the same thing. Doesn't matter. But to do what is called seed starting, you will start to grow seeds of whatever vegetables, herbs that you want to grow. You're going to start it indoors, and then once they begin to sprout out of whether it's peat, whether it's soil, you'll then move this container or the ceramic pot containing the seeds that are starting to sprout. You'll move those outdoors for limited hours in a day to get them used to the ambient temperature outside, get used to the average rain, wind, and then once they have grown 2, 3, 4 inches, they've developed their first leaves, then you can move them into the garden. Now, You can also cut this process out and just plant straight in the ground. The main benefit, which at this point of recording, we're coming up on the month of May, the benefit is really lost at this point. But the main benefit for starting seeds indoors and then transplanting them outdoors is that here in Kentucky, we have what's known as last frost. Essentially, it's going to be the average last day that the temperatures drop low enough that frost forms on plants. Typically, last frost in Kentucky is going to be the end of April, beginning of May. So a lot of people here, because we have the Derby, what they'll do is they won't plant outdoors until after Derby. Once again, this is an average. So some years, the last frost may be in the middle of April, that early, and some years may be the beginning, middle of May. But that's the average, is beginning of May. That is the last frost. After that point, the temperature, the weather here in Kentucky is warm enough that plants will survive outdoors without any risk of it getting so cold that you get frost developing on the plants, which more often than not will kill them. So let's say you want to go the route of starting your seeds indoors. And let's say you want to go above and beyond and start with these peat pellets. Very simply, what you do is you'll place them in one of these divots, and then you'll fill that divot, that cavity in the plastic, with water. So let me fill these 4 cavities that have the peat pellets wedged in there. You're going to top it off with water, as I've just done, and then you'll give it, typically takes 2 to 3 minutes, and essentially the peat is going to absorb that water, and you'll see, quite literally, 2 to 3 minutes, you're going to see this expand. Once it has expanded, this is when you will embed the seed into the peat pellet. You'll usually want to embed the seed 1 inch, 2 inches in, and then cover that seed up with some of the peat that will kind of fluff up as it continues to absorb water. And then at that stage, so you have planted the seed, as the seed, for lack of a better word, activates, or it begins to grow, and it's going to put down roots and then sprout upward a stem, you will always want to keep the peat moist. Whether you use soil or peat, when it's at that stage of a seed, you're always going to want to keep that moist. You shouldn't flood it with water, but once again, that soil, that peat, you're going to keep it moist throughout the day, day in, day out, and you'll slowly see the stem is going to kind of break out of the soil. It's going to grow upward. And then what you don't see underneath is roots will start to set underneath. So here in Kentucky, we have a hot, humid climate, but it's not necessarily tropical. I'm going to kind of list off some vegetables and herbs that can be grown in our climate. Bear in mind, this is not an exhaustive list. So if you have a vegetable, an herb in mind, you're welcome to look it up, see if you can grow it in our climate. I would say anything outside of a hot tropical climate, you will likely have a chance to grow. So here in Kentucky, you can grow various types of beans, sugar snap beans. If you like to do Chinese style stir fries, that's a very popular vegetable. Lima beans. You can grow beets, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, celery, cucumbers. You can grow Bethanjan eggplants, garlic, different lettuces, okra, lomsali. I forgot the name in Arabic for okra. But you can grow okra here in Kentucky. We do have the climate for that. Different onions, sweet, yellow, red onions, parsley, peppers. Me personally, since I very much love like the Indo-Paki cuisines, definitely grow a lot of jalapenos, serranos, Thai chilies. You can do bell peppers as well, pepperoncinis. All of those you can grow in our climate. Different potatoes, sweet potatoes, pumpkins, spinach, tomatoes, watermelons. So generally, if you are looking to grow these, if you're going to transplant, so if you're going to start them indoors and then move them outdoors, you can start as early as March. But keep in mind that last frost is typically end of April, early May. And then you've got some wiggle room in terms of how late. So the latest you can plant most of these, you're looking anywhere from June, July, August. Now, root vegetables, your carrots, your potatoes, they can, with proper care, grow outside of that spring, summer time window. Typically, root vegetables, they'll survive because, once again, root vegetables, they're growing underground. They're a lot hardier and can withstand, colder temperatures, snow. But everything else that's growing above ground, keep in mind, you're looking at spring, summer time window that you need to plant them, and then harvest could be late summer, early fall. When you transplant, so let's say I'm fast forwarding, I have already put my seed in, it's been a couple of days, I've got the stem coming out, maybe the first few leaves, and I'm transplanting it outdoors. The situation for watering them is you only really have to water them once, maybe 2 times a day. You do want to water enough to where 6 to 8 inches of the soil is going to be moist, because that will encourage roots to, drive in deeper, and that reciprocates by making the plant healthier. For example, if you're going out with a spray bottle and you're just spritzing the plant 4 or 5 times, realistically that's not really dampening the soil beneath the plant, and so the roots are not going to be as deep, and that will have the effect of the plant being weaker, the yield, the quality, the number of vegetables that it gives, it's not going to be as many. And you also want to be careful you're not going out there with like a big gallon bucket and just dumping it on the plant, because that could, you're going to flood that soil. It's just going to be completely waterlogged. You will encourage disease for the plant. So once again, a nice, you'll see people with those cans that kind of almost has like a shower head on it, where it's just like, it's evenly distributing water. You're getting the soil beneath the plant wet, just wet enough that, hey, it goes down 6 to 8 inches. That's good for the roots. That's a good middle ground. So as you can see now, the peat pellets have expanded like this. So I'm going to put in sugar snap peas. I'm going to put 2 in. I've got something else to put in the other 2, but just for the sake of demonstration. Oftentimes, 9 times out of 10, let's say you go to Myers, you could go to Wallich Garden Center, wherever you're getting seeds, 9 times out of 10, they give you helpful instructions. Follow these instructions. They're helpful. So depending on the plant, the vegetable, the herb that you're going to be planting, you'll get certain instructions. And it's like a standardized format. So you'll see it's going to give you instructions on how much sun such and such plant should get. So this one is going to require full sun, so 6 or more hours. So you want to plant this in an area where throughout the day it's going to get a direct beam of sun. The data point below that, 70 days to harvest. So this is from planting the seed to full maturity. Expect that'd be 2 in a week, or 2 months in 2 weeks until full maturity. You've got vegetables growing on the plant. I'll be honest, depth, you're just planting it 1 inch. Pretty straightforward. The thin instructions, I'll be honest, I don't really follow the advice on thinning. Essentially, what this is telling you is that each individual pea plant should be 6 inches apart. I'll be honest, I don't really follow that. Now, that being said, this is me just being a little bit more casual, but if you were going for full yield, top health, go ahead and follow that. It's it ensures that each individual plant has the proper real estate to fully grow, and that the space beneath the ground has all of the room for the roots to fully spread and dig in deep. So once again, if you are gung-ho, I want full yield, fully healthy plants, go ahead and thin. Another thing that's very helpful is oftentimes you'll see a helpful map. And this is indicating when it's best to put the plant in the ground, whether you're starting seeds directly in the ground or transplanting, you've started it indoors and you're moving it outdoors. So you can see most of Kentucky is in purple between March and April. Once again, we're coming up on May. I'm still, personally, I feel good. I'm still in a good time frame to plant. Once again, most, if not all, seed packets are going to show these data points. So these are Serrano chilies. Once again, you see days to harvest, 73. You get your planting instructions, days to germinate, planting depth, the row and plant spacing. And then once again, you got that map for Serranos here in Kentucky. You're looking anywhere between March and May. All right, so I'll go ahead and put these sugar snap pea seeds in, just to kind of round up this video. Let me find a useful tool that will just allow me to put in a good divot in the peat. All right. So, kind of wiggling it around, making a, I guess you could say like a tunnel, essentially. And then just going to kind of mount it in there. All right, so I've got that one taken care of, and then I'm going to put the second seed in this one. Once again, I'm just kind of like tunneling a hole that I can then drop the seed in, and I'm going to press it in there. Now I'll just kind of fluff up some of this peat and cover it. You just put like a little dome over it, essentially. All right, so that is the sugar snap peas planted, and then let me see if I can get the Serranos in there too, and the other two that I have. So depending on the seed that you get, you're going to have different, an assortment of shapes. The Serranos, to like balance it on a finger, essentially. They're just kind of like these flat circles, whereas those the sugar snap peas, they are like dried out, essentially what you expect with the peas. There's that. And then let's go ahead and do this one. All right. Yep. Got that covered over. All right. So once again, at this stage, I'm going to wet the peat and keep that moist. It usually takes, the sugar snap peas, they actually grow pretty quickly. I would say 4 or 5 days. The peppers take a little longer. And once again, each vegetable and herb is different. Feel free to do a little bit of research based on the vegetable or herb that you want to grow. One thing to keep in mind as well, and especially for those brothers who want to use the garden plot that is given to us at the community garden, whatever you plant, make sure that you're putting something to market. Oftentimes you can go to the store and get these little stakes that you can ride on with a Sharpie. Just do your due diligence, mark out what you've planted, because that will help. Let's say there's multiple brothers growing in the same garden plot. It'll just be a way to indicate, hey, this row or this area, I've got jalapenos growing or tomatoes. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message on WhatsApp. I am not an expert by any means, but I do have a couple of books, a couple of resources that you can borrow if you want to read more, if you want to look something up as a reference. And inshallah, I think it's a beneficial both practice and knowledge base to learn. So may Allah increase us in knowledge and increase us in good deeds. Ameen. Barakallahu feekum. Wassalamu alaikum.